Okay, so talk about assessment for reading, listening, writing, and speaking. The first one for reading. So we'll talk about two main sections here. First one, we have to identify what candidate should be able to do, and then we will move on with setting the task. So for the first one, we'll talk about the content. So here for operations, we have macro skills and micro skills. For reading, the macro skills are related to the needs, the candidate's needs or the course objectives. And there are four main macro skills. We have scanning, skimming, identifying stages of argument, identifying examples presented in support of an argument.
Ở đây muốn làm rõ cho các bạn một tí, chúng ta quen với giờ we are too familiar with the term like macro and micro. And normally micro skill goes into details and process the language. Macro skill, on the other hand, normally goes with the general ideas and inference, of the meaning. Okay. For example, if you ask for the attitudes of the writer, is for macro skill. For specific information, go to macro skill. But micro skill is more for the processing of words, vocabulary, sounds, discourse markers, right? If you have a question like, what is it in line number 1 refer to? So is it micro or macro? Nếu các bạn với người ta hỏi là cái chữ it ở câu số 1 á, nó ám chỉ cái chữ gì thì nó là micro hay macro nè.
Yeah, micro,
right, okay, micro. Nhưng mà nếu hỏi về specific, right, detail, specific information, right, skimming, scanning. Và thật ra nha, các tác giả có người ta cũng chia cái micro với macro nó hơi khác nhau nữa các bạn. Nhưng mà đại khái là thông thường, normally the big things goes to macro. And a small thing, right? We process the language. It goes to micro. Okay. Yeah. You can go to the next slide. You can dễ biết rồi các bạn ha. Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
yeah. After the operations, we move on with the types of text. So for reading, we have textbook, novel, magazine, very many authentic sources. But the text designers need to identify relevant types of text for their for the test taking.
Ở đây cái này bình thường á, người ta dùng chữ gì bạn nhớ không? Còn dùng cái chữ gì bạn nhớ không? Genre. Người ta còn nhớ chữ genre. Ở đó genre á, genre. Cái genre thì nó sẽ quy định là cái chữ nó đi đâu rồi không biết. Hỏi đúng không các bạn? Chữ genre, okay, genre. The type of text, yes.
Yeah. So there's a note that even at lower levels of ability, with appropriate items, it is possible to use authentic texts. For example, the RSA test of reading, they use the same extensive text for all 3 levels of ability, basic, intermediate, and also the advanced level. Then for the test designers also need to pay attention to the addresses and the topics in order to design the test. So for the criteria levels of performance, so it is expected that all the items should be within the capabilities of anyone who is going to take the test. And a candidate should be expected to score about 80 to 100% to pass the test. So this is just the criteria levels in order to distinguish between the levels of candidates. More than one test will be required.
Okay. The question: how can we ensure this? Trở lại cái slide lại đi bạn. How can we ensure this one?
Ensure what?
This. To tell you the truth, actually, we need experts on this one. As you know, a normal teacher, normally we base on, you know, what we have taught the students. We base on our, experience. But for example, for IELTS, for TOEFL, right? You know, they have a group of experts, right? And they pay very high for the items. Mình là giáo viên bình thường á, thì nói chung mình nôm na cái này thôi, chứ còn mà toàn là mình dựa vô kinh nghiệm, đúng không các bạn? Dựa kinh nghiệm chứ, hoặc là mình dựa theo những cái mô tả, dựa theo nội dung mình đã dạy. Còn các cái bài thi mà gọi chuẩn quốc tế thì thường người ta có một cái ban, nó ngồi nó viết, revise, nó đi pilot đủ thứ hết á, và một cái item như vậy thì họ trả tiền rất là cao. Còn mình thì nói chung là cũng tạm chọn, nhưng mà but we know this one, right? We know this one, we work towards this one, we try our best, right, to somehow ensure this is something with validity. Okay, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
So we move on with setting the tasks. So first, upon selecting text, it is said that a successful choice of text depends on experience, judgment, and a certain amount of common sense. So practice is necessary. However, there are some useful advice for selecting text. The first one, we need to keep specifications in mind. Try to select representative samples. Try not to repeatedly select text of a particular kind. And then the second one, which is text of appropriate length. For the next one, in order to obtain acceptable reliability, try to include as many passages as possible in a test. However, I think this is not very possible for most teachers because of the time constraint. But if we include many passages, it will give the candidates a good number of fresh starts. If they cannot do the first, they cannot understand the first passage, they may understand another passage in the test.
Right. Okay, but it's up to the time we have, right? With, for example, 45 minutes, how em kiểm tra một tiết, em cho mấy bài? Thường trong mấy em cho kiểm tra một tiết, em cho mấy bài? Reading.
Ở trường em lớp 12 là hai bài, có một bài là điều tiết, một bài đọc hiểu.
Đó, mình consider mấy cái đó. Một thời gian nữa, nếu mà cho nhiều thì phải thời gian nó nhiều hơn. Right, okay. Yes. Tuy biết là tốt nhưng đôi khi nó không khả thi, nó không có. Yeah. All right.
Yeah. And the next advice, in order to test scanning, look for passages which contain plenty of discrete pieces of information. Then we have to choose the text which will interest the candidates, but not overexcite or disturb them. And then we try to avoid text made up of information which may be part of the candidate's general knowledge, because it will be very difficult for us to write items that they don't know the answer, because it's their knowledge. And then we do not choose texts which are too culturally laden, involve too much cultural information, and we do not use texts which students have already read. But actually, I think this one at my school, sometimes the teacher reuse the text that students have read already.
I think it's not fair, and the students may, remember the answers, right? They may learn by how the without understanding anything, right? Okay. But why do they use that? In order to make sure that their students get high scores, or what?
I think it's because the teacher wants to encourage the student to try to read the things in their workbook.
Oh,
because it might appear in the test.
No, I don't think it's a good idea. For testing, for testing, it's not a good idea. You may choose something, similar level, something, that carries, yeah, similar vocabulary, but not exactly the same. Yeah, you see
Sometimes,
the
yeah,
problem.
they use the same text, but they
Change the question.
questions. Yeah.
Yeah, change the question is okay. Yeah, sometimes change the question. Like in my school, right? When we did, because it for listening, it's very difficult to find, listening text with, a similar topic. So one way is a part of the test is, we use the listening audio, yeah, from the class lessons, but we change, we change the what the questions. We change the question, but some students say, okay, I know, so I will learn hard the step script, and whatever you ask me, I can answer. But it's not true. It's up to the way you make questions. Some question can be quite challenging. It's not just like they have to understand. It's not just like they learn by heart the scripts. Đôi khi tí nữa tới cái phần nghe thì cũng nhấn mạnh luôn là nhiều khi á, nghe được từng chữ hết á, nhưng mà không có hiểu ý ở bên trong á, cũng không có trả lời được câu hỏi. Cho nên nhiều khi cô cũng chấp luôn. Cho nên nói chứ cô, vậy thì mấy cái bài trong lớp á, em học cái script hết rồi, cô hỏi gì em cũng trả lời được. Nói còn lâu. Còn cô trả lời được vài câu thôi, chứ còn những cái câu khác cô cho, ví dụ cô bắt so sánh này nọ thì cô chưa chắc cả. Ok, và làm sao mà học hết được tất cả các bài. Alright, so yeah, go ahead. Right.
Yeah. So we move on with writing the item.
Writing.
So we have multiple choice, unique answer, short answer, guided short answer, summary codes, information transfer. And these things have been presented already. So for multiple choice, they advise that we should having not applicable or we don't know in order to reduce the likelihood of guessing correctly.
Okay.
For unique answer, it is supposed that the students will supply one word or a number or slightly longer in the form of question, answer, or sentence completion. For short answer, it is in the form of question, and then the students answer with full sentence or phrases. But the test designer may have to pay special attention because this kind of answer may create problems of production unrelated to reading ability. It means that the candidates may understand the reading, but they are unable to express their ideas in writing. So it's a problem with writing, not with reading.
Yeah, just cẩn thận ha. So we must be careful. We say writing. We must be clear. Writing items. We have to think of the best way to get the information, the wanted information. Right. Sometimes you give the student. Now, giving the student a chance to write the answers after the reading may be something that helps you to prevent them from cheating, right? However, it takes time for the student to write. It takes time for you to grade, and also, some students may be good at reading, but not good at writing. So how can you get the information? Yeah. So is it writing or reading? And you can consider this one as integrative test if you mean to test the writing through the reading, given the reading as ideas to write. It's another question. But here, right, if you ask the student to write, to answer, you must be careful. And the way we grade, should it be if the students make mistakes in grammar or vocabulary, how can we minus the point or just cross out the whole thing? We grade the information, or we grade the language used also. It should be clear in the grading guide. So is short answer. Normally, like in my school, for the English, for non-English, for non-English majors, like because I'm in charge of the the second foreign languages and also language for non-English majors. So the school encourage us to create, the item bank with multiple choice questions. So they just give the grading job to the machine, and that's it, right? Of course, we also have drawbacks, but within the short amount of time of grade, and we consider different things, and before we came up to that solution. Okay, go ahead. Tiếp tục với bạn.
So next one we have guided short answer. For this one, candidates complete sentences presented to them, like the example here. Instead of complete sentences, separate sentences, they may give a kind of paragraph, and then the students have to read the whole passage to get the idea, and then they will fill in they will complete the sentences in the form of a paragraph, not only one sentence. And then we have to close. This is an extension of guided short answers. Students will fill in the gaps in a summary. And for information transfer, students are supposed to supply simple information in a table, follow a route, a map, or label a picture. So for techniques for particular purposes, I think this one we can skip. They just give the examples of some kind of questions.
Rồi, mình có thể chuyển slide các bạn xem thêm ha, cái phần nào mà nó dễ hơn.
So which language for items and responses? For items, the reading test items are not meant to cause candidates any difficulties of comprehension. It means that the candidates are supposed to understand everything in the reading test items. And for the response, we should make minimal demand on writing ability, like a teacher have just talked. Right? So for procedures, firstly, we will read the text carefully, then we have specified operations in mind, and then we note the main points or interesting information or stages of argument of the text, and then we determine types of tasks that is reasonable based on the text. Then we write track items. If we have reference items, we should add the paragraph number and line number to the text. And finally, we may need our colleagues' help for moderation items and text. And there are some advice on writing the items. For scanning, items should be in order based on the text, and try not to write items that the correct response can be found without understanding. For example, the questions repeat nearly the whole sentence. And then try not to include items that some candidates may answer without reading the text.
Okay.
And no transferring, Mrs. Green have just mentioned before, in the reading test, errors of grammar or spelling or punctuation should not be penalized, because reading tests are supposed to test the reading ability only. So if we test productive skills at the same time, it will make the measurement of reading ability less accurate.
But sometimes, it's difficult because mistakes in writing, mistakes in using language may influence the meaning. So, sometimes, okay, cô mời Tuyền có ý kiến Tuyền. Ơi bạn Tuyền.
Dạ.
Sao Tuyền?
Em bị chặn cái clip.
Ôi giời ơi, so you have to say something. Alright. Nhiều khi thật sự ra thì nhiều khi chấm mấy cái bài xong học trò lên á, cô sao cái chữ này cô quẹt hết câu này của con, nói trời em viết cái chữ này đâu có đúng, sai spelling thôi mà cô. Nó rất là phiền phức các bạn, nên là tôi cũng sợ cái dạng mà gọi là short answer đó. answers is rồi nhiều khi làm sao tôi biết được, ví dụ như một chữ tôi làm sao biết được em sai spelling hay là em dùng chữ sai. Right. Okay. Tiếp theo.
Yeah, so that's all for reading and move on with listening.
Actually, we can skip the listening part because it's similar to reading. But something I would like to remind you is that for reading, the text is there. They can just go back to the text whatever time they want to. You know, except for some situation like for certain tests, they don't allow the student to go back to the text after, the certain passages have been completed. But right, in listening, the difficulty of the text, also depends not just the words, the language, the topic, genre, right? The register, formal or informal, the context, right? The culture, everything, related, we have mentioned about listening is there, plus the pace and the accent of the speaker, right? The pace and the accent of the speaker. Cái tốc độ nói, cái tốc độ mà của cái audio và cái action, xin lỗi, cái accent, cái giọng Anh hay giọng Mỹ, giọng Úc gì đó, nó cũng ảnh hưởng rất là nhiều. Vậy thì chúng ta để ý cái phần này. Cái độ khó nó như thế nào? Cô có cái chắc là bạn tí nữa là Quyên trình bày hả Quyên? Quyên nói những cái phần nào mà có ở trong cái reading thôi nha. Ok, những cái kia thì question rồi responses thì cô nghĩ là nó giống hết rồi đó.
Dạ.
Ok.
So this is about writing. So I will cover 5 main points here. Number 1, 4 main types of writing performance, and then I will talk about different techniques to assess different types of writing performance, like imitative, intensive, responsive, and extensive. And the last part, which is also the most important thing, analytical and holistic. Yeah. Okay, now let's talk about the 4 main types of writing performance here. Imitative, intensive, responsive, and extensive. Imitative focus on the smallest level of word, like letters, words, and punctuation. Intensive focus on sentence level. Responsive, we move to paragraph, and extensive, which is the most advanced level. We will have the student to write a whole piece of writing here, maybe a thesis, or a report. Yeah. So now let's talk about techniques for imitative writing. So if you want to test some letter, words, and punctuation, copy is the easiest one. Yeah. Number 2, you can include some listening feature here, like you let them hear this one and they have to fill in the blank, and you can even give them the word already to make the test become easier. And remember to pay attention to the deletion ratio, like Miss Quinn has reminded us, every 4 or 5 words, we put a blank there. Number 3, picture cue card, very easy. Number 4, form completion. This is similar to listening, IELTS listening, section 1. Yeah. Number 5, converting numbers and abbreviation to words to check writing, but actually it's more related to reading. And it's inauthentic because in real life, we don't actually use Tuesday. We use Tuesday to make it faster. Yeah. But there's a section called you want to detect the phoneme and grapheme correspondences. So now first, what is grapheme? So when you say the word spoon, the way that you pronounce it, we call it the phonemes. But we put it into letters. So double O. Representing for the U sound. So this is what we call graphemes. And but in terms of letter, we have 2 letters O. And it happened for the phoneme F here. We have like F can appear in different forms of phoneme: tough, bone, cuff, and fish. Yes, so that's what phoneme is. So now we can use spelling tests like dictation to help the student check their, phonemic correspondences. So teachers should read aloud a word, and you have to include pauses. You can repeat it if you want to, and normally we test students the word that they are familiar with already. And I want to share with you guys a very not really famous like IELTS or TOEFL, but it is actually becoming more famous. PTE.
PTE.
Yeah. You know this?
PTE is used in Australian system, right? PTE.
Yeah. It's extremely popular in Australia, and this is what a PTE test will look like. It's scored completely by computer without any human involvement. So that's the reason why they prefer PTE more than IELTS, because IELTS is difficult. It's more difficult. And Australian government also allow us to convert PTE score to IELTS and TOEFL IBT in this year. Yeah, it's extremely popular for immigrants who want to seek a permanent residence there. Yeah. So in PTE format, we also test 4 skills, all will scored by computer. In the listening section, we have something called write from dictation. This is the most difficult part in the listening. Wait a minute.
Oh.
Yeah, so you will wait for the audio to load, and then you will listen and type in your answer here. But I don't know if I can listen to this one. Yeah, this is the answer key. It's very complex. Yeah, so there's a small trick. I think that we have a question bank in PTE. A lot of my friends teach PTE in Australia. They tell me that we have a question bank. If you can learn by heart all of the questions there, you can absolutely score the maximum.
So there are things for you guys to teach, right?
Yes, that's the reason why they prefer it to IELTS. Yeah. So now let's come to number 2, picture cue. But this one, you focus on the minimal pairs, like grapheme and phoneme.
Root and
yeah, the very small differences there. And multiple choice techniques. Experts advise that we can make the test more challenging by use homonyms. Word that sound similarly to each other. Like question 1 here: soap, 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 and soup. So you can see that it makes students confused. Yeah. Number 4, matching phonetic symbol. I bet you guys all familiar with this one. Back to university. Yeah. But it can become a problem for students who cannot read the phonetic alphabet. So be careful with this. So now let's come to technique for intensive writing, which focus on sentence level. This one is extremely popular with high school teachers like me. And we have another name for it, like form focused and grammar and guided writing or control writing. I want to distinguish display writing and real writing. For display writing, we use language to show the ability to use grammar, vocabulary, and sentence formation. But real writing, we have a purpose, and we want to convey the purpose to the audience. So it's much difficult. And this one, intensive writing, will belong only to this phase, display writing only, not real. They don't focus on meaning, actually. Yeah. So there's some technique for you guys to test this. Dictation, like I've told you before, and dictocom. This one, you will read a whole paragraph instead of just a short sentence. You can repeat it if you want. And you ask the student to rewrite the whole paragraph. So to make it easier, you can give them the handout with keywords in sequence. And while listening, the student will try to internalize all the contents and then use the keyword or the word that you give them in the handout as cues to recreate the whole story. Yeah, that's what dictocom. Technique number 2, which is the most popular here in the intensive writing, sentence transformation or grammatical transformation. It has 3 big advantages. It is easy to administer. It is practical because you can assess a lot of students at one time, and it is reliable too because normally we will limit the answer to only 1 or 2 possible answers. So yeah, it's reliable. And this is an example I take from the national test in 2016. You can see here, sentence transformation. Yeah, very basic and traditional one. Another way we can use picture, and picture can be used in four main ways. One, we ask them to write a short sentence for the picture like this. Two, we ask them to describe the picture with the target words like preposition here. Three, we give them a sequence like this, and they have to create a whole story using the picture. And four, sorry, we have three only. So this is, and you can also test writing by testing their vocabulary. And there are two levels to test vocabulary. Number one, define the meaning of the word, which is less authentic than this one. We ask the student to use the words to create a sentence. Yeah. And I particularly take interest in this test. This vocabulary test is really interesting. So in this test, you can see here that number one, student have to write sentence using the words so to check their usage. Number two, they have to provide a word that can go with interpret. So we call it collocation. And number three, we focus on morphology. Like student have to add the word ER here. Interpreter is the person who interprets. Yeah, so I really like this part, and maybe I will try it for my students. Yeah. So it creatively link on the target, collocation, and morphological variants, but it focus on form rather than meaning. Okay, the next technique, ordering. This one is very old. We don't actually use it anymore in in testing, and because it's all in.
But when did you have a look at V-Step level 2? Actually, they still use this one. Cái bài thi V-Step mà do A2 á là họ xài cái này nè.
Dạ, ở trường em vẫn xài á cô, cho cấp 2
vẫn xài á. Nhưng mà cái này cô nói thiệt nha, khó chấm nè. Nó cũng không có dễ đâu. Nhiều khi nó thêm thắt chữ này chữ kia vô mà mình không có expect được, nhưng mà câu nó vẫn đúng á.
Dạ, hình như cái dạng
đó. Cho nên là khó chấm á. Và nó thêm cũng hay lắm á, chứ không phải đôi khi cũng khó chấm. Mình viết cái key ra cũng hơi bị khó nó hôm bữa bên cái hệ bên trường cô bị một cái problem là học trò nó tức là thầy giáo cho cái dạng này là với lại transformation đó, mà không có lường trước được là có nhiều cái câu trả lời khác nhau mà cái hệ thống của nó là chấm trên máy. Cái họ nói chứ câu này em làm đúng mà, cứ hỏi liên tục câu này câu nọ câu gì em làm đúng mà tại sao là chấm em là sai vậy. Nói cái này chấm trên máy thì các bạn chịu khó, câu nào mà thắc mắc thì hỏi, nhưng mà mình thấy nó cũng có cái gì đó sai, tại vì mình phải expect trước được, ví dụ nếu mà chấm trên máy. Còn khi mà gai là những cái người mà người ta chấm mà chuyên nghiệp rồi đó thì không có vấn đề, nhưng mà những cái người mà mới chấm đó, các bạn thấy là nó rối lắm, rối cho họ lắm.
Dạ, mà như cái đó là cái dạng mà có thêm chữ vô cô, còn cái dạng nó chỉ rearrange thôi, còn nó chỉ sắp.
Rearrange thì nó đơn giản hơn đúng không? Ok.
Cái dạng này là thi tuyển sinh lớp 10 vẫn còn dùng thôi.
Đúng rồi.
Cái nó vẫn còn dùng á.
Dạ, em nhớ rồi. Dạ. Okay, so now let's come to the next technique, short answer and sentence completion. Yeah, this one, you put a gap here and ask the student to fill in the gap. Now let's come to responsive and intensive. Here are some techniques for you guys. Number one, paraphrasing. You can test it. But while you score the student performance, you need to bend your that. The most important thing is to make sure the sentence is similar to the original one. Yeah, and then you can look at the discourse, grammar, and vocabulary later. Yeah, but the most important thing is the meaning. And when to use it? Well, experts said that paraphrasing is best used for informal and formative assessment rather than formal and summative, because it can provide you some effect to help your student improve their writing skill. Yeah. So the question and answer. It means that you give them a set of questions and then student will answer the question and write a whole paragraph for you guys. So outline for this one can be created by the student themselves, but from reading or from discussing with discussing peers, or it can be provided beforehand by teacher or test administrator, and easier for the student to follow. Now this is what I take from the national test in 2016 too. We used to include a writing part like this, but it is carried out only 2 years, 2015 and 16, it canceled. Maybe because enough teacher to score the paper, and it's It costs a lot of time, and money.
Just for 2 scores. Hình như chỉ có 2 điểm thôi đúng không? Cô nhớ cách đây mười mấy năm đi chấm điên khùng luôn mà tổng cộng có 2 điểm mà.
Dạ đúng rồi cô, có 2 điểm mà 2015, 2016 đúng 2 năm đó là
vậy. Trời ơi, cũng lòi mắt luôn.
Dạ cực. Okay, so now let's come to outline, another kind of outline. You can give your student like questions and then they will answer, but it's more useful for drafting and editing, right? And it doesn't appear so often in a formal test like Okay, so paragraph construction. In order to create a paragraph, you should let the student expose to a good sample first, and then you use questions to help them analyze its success, and then to emulate. Emulate means you imitate, but without actually copying. Yeah. And a good paragraph should contain topic sentence, topic development, and supporting ideas. Yeah. Strategy option talk about the way that you can help the student to create a paragraph or an essay. Like that, number one is very familiar with me because I use it for all the thesis, free writing, outlining, drafting, and revisiting. But for IELTS students I teach, I use strategy 2, a task. Like in task 1, we have compare and contrast between diagrams, and problem solution, broadcast, and cause effect falls into task 2. Attending to genre is another possible approach. You can teach them how to write reports.
Quyên, looks like you are familiar with IELTS, right? I ask you a question? Sometimes is it true that sometimes we have prompt that give the students the freedom to choose whatever rhetoric modes they can write to answer the prompt?
Yeah,
different ways, right? Sometimes we have 1, 2, 3, 4 for what we call rhetoric mode. Right, rhetoric mode. Những cái này gọi là rhetoric mode. Compare, contrast, problem solution, vân vân. Is it true that sometimes the students are free to choose, for example, opinion essay? They are free to choose what mode they should use in order to give evidence for their opinion or to defend for their opinion. Is that true?
Oh well, I heard this before, but I think they should stick to the mode
but actually, sometimes it's not clear. For example, like what do you think? Yeah, what do you agree? So I think sometimes my advice to my students is that okay, you think of the mode, which one is the most effective for you to stand for your point, just go for it. Okay, yeah, right, just câu hỏi này ngoài lề. Yeah, okay, just continue.
Okay, so and the last one is an example take from the standardized test of responsive writing. You can see that IELTS and TOEFL are the 2 prominent examples for this one. They are commercialized to earn money. Thousands of students at one time and earn a lot of money. So a test taker have to respond to a prompt within a time limit. So we call it timed impromptu test. And of course, it is not authentic because in real life, when you write something, you have time to revise it before you submit something. But in tests like this, we don't have that. Number 3, it talks about like the burden of these standardized tests. Like within a time limit, they have to elicit a sample, and that sample has to be representative of a person writing ability. That it stands for the general ability is really it can be affected by a lot of factors around them. And standardized test is really necessary and effective for administration because you can evaluate and classify hundreds and thousands of applicants. So now let's talk about the scoring method, the main part of my presentation, holistic and analytical approach.
Okay.
Yeah. So for linguistic, we use one score, and that score will tell everything about the tester overall writing ability. Yeah. But for analytical, we will break a piece of writing into different subcategories like grammar, vocabulary, coherence and cohesion, and task achievement. And we give each score for each category like that, and then we combine them together to get the sum, and that is the final score. Yeah.
Okay, which one do you think is easier to use? Đố bạn, các bạn khác nữa. But which one is easier to use?
Dạ, thì em nhường mấy bạn khác trước. Mọi người.
Dạ rồi, đúng rồi. Chắc có mời Nguyệt đi. Nguyệt không bao giờ nghe phát biểu gì hết. Mời bạn Nguyệt.
Dạ. Nên con nghĩ là
Which one is easier to...
Con nghĩ là analytical sẽ nó ghi chi tiết.
Sao? Why? Why you think it's easier to use?
Tại vì nó ghi chi tiết ra từng cụm và cái điểm.
Some people may prefer holistic.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, who else would like to say something about this one? Yeah, thank you, Nguyệt. Cô mời cô mời Bảo Thư.
Dạ, em cũng chọn là analytical approach cô.
Mà em có thể giải thích được không? Tại sao em lại chọn đó?
Dạ, tại vì thường chấm thì chấm theo tiêu chí cô, theo criteria.
Thì nó sẽ dễ hơn cho em đúng không? Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Who do you think will prefer holistic approach? Đố các bạn chứ ai sẽ thích cái holistic hơn? Experienced readers. Những người ta đã chấm quen rồi đó. Các bạn thấy là các giáo viên mà đi chấm môn văn thì cũng phải tiếng Việt với hả không? Dạ. Tôi nhìn trọng điểm khá chính xác. Thì vậy thì experienced readers always prefer holistic. Okay? But on the other hand, like new or novice readers prefer analytical approach because they know which part, which grade should go to which criteria. And criterion actually. Right. But anyway, whole analytics approach takes time. Cái analytics này lại là tốn thời giờ lắm các bạn. Holistic, yeah, quick help the graders to give a score very quickly. Another thing we have to look at is the backwash or washback, right? If there's which one do you think the student would like to see? Want to see holistic score or analytical score? Nếu các bạn chứ học trò thì nó thích kết quả ra thì nó thích xem cái analytical hay là holistic? Nếu các bạn nó sẽ thích xem analytical approach. Bởi vì sao? Because they Diễm Quỳnh, you want to say something? Diễm Quỳnh muốn nói gì
Em
vậy?
nghĩ là cũng giống như tụi em á cô, ví dụ bài essay viết xong gửi đi thì lúc mà nhận lại điểm, mà nếu mà có điểm từng phần thì tụi em cũng sẽ rạch hơn là mình mạnh.
Đúng rồi, mình biết cái nào yếu, cái nào mạnh để cải thiện. Còn cái thằng holistic nguyên một cái điểm vậy không biết nó là tại sao. Có phải không? Mặc dù là bên IELTS nó cũng giải thích gì điểm như đây là làm được cái chuyện gì, nhưng thực ra có những cái criteria bên trong đó. So you see, right? The both ways can have their benefits and drawbacks. But it's up to you and how you use it. Right? Hai cách này đều có những cái điểm hay và điểm dở của nó. Right. Okay, Quyên, back to you.
Yeah, so I want to talk a little bit about these 2 point, equal and unequal way to category. For example, to emphasize on vocabulary, you can assign more score to vocabulary than grammar. Yeah, and it will be affected by the curricular goals too. If the course aims to teach student vocabulary, so of course you have to assign more score to the vocabulary.
Yeah. And also, you can move around, right? You can, we call it the weight of the score. Tổng số á. So it's up to the purpose of the test, right? Sometimes you can move around, you can put more, weight on an aspect like vocabulary or grammar or coherence, cohesion, or yeah, it is right. And everything you can move around. It's up to it's the test you design with the purpose. So it's you who has the job to explain and to deliver the weight of the scores, according. Okay, là đối với cái điểm mà analytic thì nó có thể làm cái căn cứ cho chúng ta có thể cho cái trọng số khác nhau tùy theo, ví dụ như cái khóa học của em là chút về vocabulary thì cái điểm vocabulary trong bài thi nó phải cao, trọng số nó sẽ nhiều hơn là những cái phần khác. Okay, thank you Quyên. Yeah, next.
And this is the two example I take. Holistic is TOEFL. Use
TOEFL.
Yeah. Like you have 6 points and you have all these features in your writing performance. And then for analytical, it is IELTS. Yeah, you practice and type like this. Dạ, cho nên em nghĩ là mấy cái bài mà bảng điểm IELTS nó nên kèm các bản report cụ thể là cuối cùng là mình có điểm nào ở mục nào.
Là rất là hay đúng không? Ok, mình có không? Hình như không à?
Dạ không, nó chỉ có cái bảng điểm.
Không có, chỉ có bảng điểm thôi. Đó giờ con thấy có bảng điểm thôi.
Dạ, nếu mà bản report cho speaking và writing nó sẽ ok hơn. Dạ.
Ok, mình biết mình cải thiện đúng không?
Dạ đúng rồi. So let's talk about the advantages, but I think that Miss Wee has covered.
Yeah, I have. Có cái gì mới không? Chắc
có một số cái luôn.
Em để kể thêm đi, cái nào cô chưa nói.
Yeah, so it's fast, obviously, and you have to give only one score, and it's reliable. Only one writer will score all the papers. It is manageable. Yeah, and the score are easily interpreted by layperson. Like if anyone who don't learn about teaching and testing, they also know that 9 is better than 8.
Okay.
Yeah, and there are some drawbacks too. First, it will mask the differences across the sub-skill. Like you cannot know what is your weaknesses. Yeah, and therefore it provide no flashback effect. And according to experts, they believe that holistic approach will require more training than analytical.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
And
bạn nào mà có hay đi chấm cái bài Cambridge Flyer Mover hoặc là FCE cho bên Cambridge thì là hàng năm hình như họ đều có phải train readers các bạn.
Yeah.
Bên trường cô speaking á, là có 2 người chấm một lúc nha. Một người chấm holistic á, sẽ là cái người mà phỏng vấn mấy em làm interlocutor, còn cái người kia ngồi nghe thôi và cho điểm analytic. Cho nên là sau đó cộng lại và thảo luận với nhau để cho ra điểm cuối cùng, nó tăng cái reliability của cái bài lên.
Dạ xỉu quá cô.
Trời ơi, mỗi lần thi speaking thì kiếm giảng viên cũng mệt đó.
Okay, so let's come to analytical. So the first benefit is that it helps you to solve the problem of uneven development of sub-skills. Yeah, you can focus on your weaknesses like better, and then and of course it will take into consideration that the aspect that can be ignored if you use holistic only, and the scoring is more reliable and accurate. Yeah. And disadvantage, it takes longer time because you have to score each category separately. So you have to score 4 points for one paper. And then it can divert attention from the overall effect. Cái này thì em không rõ lắm cô, em đọc em không hiểu.
Divert attention from the overall effect to reliable but not that. Cái này nó liên quan đến là gì? Mình khi chấm á, mình focus nhiều với reliable quá, cho nên là đôi khi thực ra thì các bạn biết là khi mà viết á, when writing and even in speaking, sometimes we cannot separate parts of the language. Đôi khi mình đâu có tách cái language ra từng mảnh được. Yeah. Cho nên là để reliable thì mình tách ra, mình làm category rồi analytical approach, nhưng mà thật ra cái validity của một cái bài á, đôi khi nó là sự tổng hợp giữa các cái yếu tố đó và nó match với nhau như thế nào. Chứ còn cái tính chất mình gọi là mình tách ra kiểu đó rồi mình canh theo cái reliable là mình có thể là mình sẽ quên cái validity của cái bài đó đi. Đó là cái ý của cái câu này. Divert attention from the overall effects, the reliable but not valid. Đôi khi có một số bài nha, tính ra từng phần nó rất là ấy, nhưng mà khi đặt nó chung lại với nhau á, thì nó lại không có được, và khi so với nhau thì là nó có thể là nó không có được đúng như vậy á. Cho nên là ở đây đúng rồi, đôi khi có nhiều bài đạt hết cái chỉ số đó, nhưng mà cuối cùng thì một cái bài trọn vẹn thì nó lại vấn đề này vấn đề kia. Đó là cái ý của câu này.
Yeah. So now let's talk to when to use this one. Actually, I want to pose this question to my classmates, but we don't have time for this, I guess.
Okay, you just throw the answer.
Yeah. So for holistic approach, it is normally used for admission and placement. Yeah, you want to classify a lot of students to different levels. We use holistic is faster, and it is save time if you like have a small and well-knit group of writers that they work well with each other. Yeah. And then analytical, if you want to like teach your students based on their performance, I think you should use analytical to watch effects. Yeah. And it can be used to group of different raters and at different places. Like IELTS examiner in Vietnam and Australia, they will use the same rubrics and they may come up with the same score. Yeah, because it's reliable. And the watchback effect too, it helps the student to prove weaknesses and capitalize on their strengths. Yeah. Còn hai phần cuối em thấy không có quan trọng lắm, cho nên chắc là
thôi skip đi. Cái này slide là sẽ gửi cho các bạn. Các bạn nhớ là submit mấy slide cũ của mình lên luôn trong cái group của mình nha, để cho các bạn khác tham khảo luôn ha. Okay. Rồi. Vậy ông định nói về speaking hả? Nói đùa chứ speaking thì nó cũng na ná như vậy, nhưng mà nó có thêm một cái vấn đề là khi làm bài cho ra khi gác thi speaking, tổ chức thi speaking thì cái environment, the environment, you know, the relationship between the examiners and the candidate is very important. Somehow it influenced the reliability and even the validity of the information. Yeah, cũng mời bạn hình như đăng bạn có thuận với cô không? Cô dạ đúng rồi cô. Đúng rồi, em show lên đi. Có cái gì khác chút thì mình đấy. Cô show cái này cho lớp luôn nè. Cho cô một phút và cô show cái bảng này một chút xíu. Đây là cái bảng mà các bạn có thể dùng để các bạn chọn các cái text trong phần listening á, để xem nha. Nó ở đây cái thông tin này lúc trước cô đi học final test của cô bật đây. Cô đi học cái training về VSTEP á, thì họ có cho cái bảng này. Chúng ta xem có sử dụng được gì không. Rồi các bạn biết cái bảng ha, thì ở đây á, trong speaking á, nó có quy định, listening nó có quy định một số cái về cái tốc độ số từ trong bao nhiêu phút á. Thì ở đây căn theo cái của ông Phil là Cambridge ISO thì nó có 3 cấp độ A2, B1, B2 á. Thì chúng ta thấy cái tốc độ word per second là các bạn WPS, như khi các bạn xài một số cái phần mềm mà để chúng ta edit cái sound này, các bạn có thể điều chỉnh đó. Ví dụ cô thì cô hay dùng cái Audacity á, Audacity khá dễ dùng, thích này nọ rồi có điều chỉnh thì rất là dễ. Cái ngưỡng của chúng ta là từ 2.51 đến 150.6 word per minute, 2.51 word per second. Đó, các bạn thấy chúng ta có thể chụp cái này để chúng ta căn cứ vào đó thì chúng ta điều chỉnh cái độ khó, tốc độ. Thì normal speech thì thường là 200 từ trong 1 phút và tính theo giây, các bạn thấy không? WPS. Còn low speed, high speed đây nè, người ta có ghi sẵn cho chúng ta, thì cứ vậy chúng ta làm thôi, cũng đây thêm cái thông tin này để chúng ta chọn các cái audio mà chúng ta cho học trò mình thi á, thì mình biết. Rồi chắc nhường lại cái phần cuối cùng cho bạn Hải nha. Cô ngừng chia sẻ ha. Chắc các bạn muốn chụp hình. Rồi, ok.
Dạ, cảm ơn cô.
Không có gì. Rồi mời Hải.
Dạ. Dạ, mấy bạn, mấy cô có thấy màn hình của em chưa ạ?
Thấy rồi. Speaking.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. And now it's my part to talk about the speaking. And I will move this quotation from Cutler. And to produce the speech, we also have we must have the cognitive skill and also have the knowledge sources. And this is from the two authors in the screen. Okay.
Ở đây cũng nói chút xíu về cái cognitive thinking nhé. There are questions that just similar to other skills. You have to pay attention. They are easy questions. For example, question that you can just pick the answer, available in the text, the given text. But there are questions that we expect you to put things together, compare, contrast, and sometimes you have to make predictions. So it's expect you of a higher level of cognitive thinking. So it exists in all of the tests, tất cả các bài test. Một cái các bạn cũng cần quan tâm là cái gọi là gì, cái khả năng trí tuệ của người đi thi. Có người, và nó liên quan đến cái độ tuổi. Các em nhỏ thì mình đòi hỏi nó cái task gì, trung bình rồi thì người già, người lớn, người đi học rồi thì đòi hỏi những cái khả năng gì, trong mình expect họ làm được cái gì. Và với cái thông tin mà tất cả cái này là đều chúng ta đều phải có consider nữa các bạn nhé. Ok, rồi tiếp tục đi Hải.
Okay.
Yeah.
And about the agenda, what candidate should be able to do, and we have the content, the criteria, and the setting of the task. In the setting, we have selecting the text, writing the item, some technique, and the language for item, and the response, the procedures, and the advice, and then a note from the scoring. Here is some kind of oral interaction.
Chắc mình có thể skip phần này á Hải, tại vì các bạn chắc cũng quen rồi. Tất cả các dạng trong bài thi speaking thì có cái gì là chúng ta cũng biết rồi ha.
Yes, and we also have two types, the dialogue and multi-participant interaction. Okay, and we have some criteria: accuracy, appropriacy, flexibility, size, and range.
Oh, what do you mean by size and range? I'm joking. I know what you mean. Right. Okay. Khi chúng ta sử dụng ngôn ngữ á, thì học trò nó hay khi đi thi á, nó hay để an toàn, câu dễ không chẳng hạn. Nhưng mà cái nó phải biết, và khi mình dạy cũng vậy, mình phải chỉ cho học trò biết là một cái bài mà được đánh giá cao á, thì thường người ta đánh giá chính xác, và cái yếu tố phù hợp nó cũng rất là quan trọng. Okay. Khi nào chúng ta dùng từ này, khi nào dùng kia. Và cái range á, tức là cái vốn từ mình càng nhiều, mình càng sâu nhiều thì mình càng được điểm cao, có mà giấu cũng như không. Rồi flexibility ở đây đặc biệt là đối với cái phần speaking thì chúng ta gọi là mềm dẻo, có nghĩa là chúng ta biết cách chọn cái nào và dùng thay đổi luân phiên với nhau, và biết cách gọi là xử lý các tình huống ở trong cái conversation. Khi nào chúng ta biết chúng ta bắt đầu, khi nào chúng ta mời người khác join vô, chứ mình mà nói từ đầu đến cuối trong conversation mình cũng không được điểm cao. Rồi khi nào hỏi, khi nào và đồng ý vân vân. Rồi và cái tôi nghĩ cái size và range nó cũng na ná như nhau. Và không biết là bạn Hải có thấy cái gì khác không? Và mời Hải tiếp tục nha.
Yes, thank you. And about the formats, we have the interview, and but the interview have some drawbacks, that the relationship between the superior and the examiner and the examinee. So many mention
the examinee cannot represent. So, for example, asking for information.
Interview can be easy, but it can be challenging. It's up to, the topic, and it's up to the purpose of the interview, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. And if we test them by the interaction with their peers, it also has the drawback that some students they are so they dominate, they are so assertive, and they
influence the performance of the others. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
And here we have the diagram to illustrate.
Đúng rồi, mình có nhiều dạng.
And the next one is the response to the tape recording, and the drawback of this kind.
This is popular for computer tests nowadays.
Yes.
And as far as I know, IELTS, is moving to, to use computer test and recording, tape recording, for you to answer, and recording your answer also, 100% I'm sure they will use this one. Có những cái bài test mà, bài VSTEP cũng vậy, họ có câu hỏi thu sẵn, và họ thu luôn câu trả lời của người đi luôn. Thì IELTS thì nghe nói là đang chuyển sang cái dạng này, mà cô thì cô cũng không thích dạng này lắm. It's not natural. It's for the sake of, interaction. Yeah, go ahead, please.
Okay, and here is the diagram of the tape recorder or computer.
Yeah.
Okay, and here is some advice for planning and conducting oral tests, and I think that I will get through it. Okay, and here is some elicitation techniques, and for the question and request, I just want to remind that the yes/no question, we should not use this type. Instead of that, we can use by can you explain to me how or why this question avoid examinee to just answer yes or no.
Oh, right. Some examinee don't know, they don't know the expectation of the test. They just say yes or no. But they take test preparation, they know that they have to speak at length in order to get the score, right?
Okay, and about the pictures, we have the single picture to the examinee to describe. If we give them the status of a picture, and they will narrate a story. Okay, and we also have role play, interpreting, tape recording, stimuli, and imitation. And I have some picture. This is example of the storytelling. And here is also the telling
kind of
story.
Test question.
Yes, okay.
Cái này mình gọi là input cũng được.
Yes, and about the role play, the examiner will give the context or the beginning of the story, and they ask the examinee to role a play and to speak. He's the model of text recorded stimuli.
Okay.
Okay, and the two techniques that are not recommended in the speaking test that are prepare monologue, and it is described. I think that it's somehow like the task 2 of IELTS speaking.
Yeah, it's popular. Actually, it's popular in VSTEP. We also use this one. Yeah.
Okay, and they argue that when in 1 or 2 minutes, the examinee have to prepare. They increase the stress. They feel more stressful.
Right.
Yes.
But for high level like presentation, this one is the one that can help the examiners to evaluate or to assess the students' ability. Cái này nó liên quan đến khả năng ten đó, cho nên là Nhưng mà normally after this one, the candidates will be asked some question related to what he or she has presented. So to make for the monologue part, we also have conversation, right? Okay.
This is the third part of the IELTS speaking test.
Yeah.
Okay, and the second one, the second technique that are not recommended are reading aloud. Because the ability to read aloud differ from the ability to converse with another person. So reading aloud might have a certain usefulness, but it has some watchback effect and somehow very harmful.
It has something wrong with validity, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And reading aloud just tests about the pronunciation.
I think this one is more appropriate for low-level students, especially, young learners. Yeah.
Okay, and the next one is some material levels. And go into detail. Yes.
Thôi được rồi. Đó, những cái thành phần, the components, the criteria. Okay.
Yes,
it depends on the, sometimes they put interactiveness inside, right, also. Oh, that's it?
Okay. And now we have prepare a quiz for the class. I think that
we don't have enough time.
We don't have enough time, so I will type the link and the code, and we will cite it as a homework.
Okay? Right. Thank you. Very good idea. We actually we don't have. Do you have any questions for the part in charge by group number 8? Nhóm 8 của chúng ta thì các bạn thấy là có câu hỏi gì thêm không? Cô nghĩ là cũng là khá là rõ. Và cái chúng ta, the thing you have to remember, keep in mind that when you design a test, it's not just like to take the text from somewhere, but you have to look at different, different things, different components, and you have to think, in order to be able to do this, to complete the task, what are the ability, what are the things that the students have to go through, what kind of difficulty, so think of, our job is very important to create, the best situation, or create the most appropriate situation for the students to review or to show, to expose their best, right? Of their competencies or abilities. Okay. Not to mention we have to think of administration, right? All the things should be together. Nhiệm vụ của chúng ta khi chúng ta design một cái bài test thì chúng ta phải tạo điều kiện tốt để cho người học thể hiện đúng cái khả năng của họ, không quá tốt hơn bởi vì chơi chiêu chơi mánh và cũng không quá tệ hơn, right? Because it's the usefulness, of the test, right? Influence the usefulness of the test. Okay.